We're coming out on a very cold Saturday afternoon to attend this public hearing to discuss the proposal for school modernization facilities. There are agendas available if you don't have one. There's some on the side. We try to pass those around. And as an opening for the public hearing, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to quickly review the agenda for this afternoon. I'm just going to have a couple of opening remarks. We'll turn the presentation over to the chair of the Ad Hoc School Modernization Committee, Michael Virgo. We'll introduce committee members, and then we'll go through a presentation of the proposal as it stands now, followed by a question and answer period. I'll be moderating question and answers. We have extra microphones to send around the room. People can't wait till they get the microphone so everybody can hear the question, and then we can respond accordingly. And if we'll stay as long as necessary and answer all your questions as best we can. If we don't know the answer to the questions, we'll take action on that and get that back out either through the website or some other method so you can get some follow-up. So by way of beginning, just a reminder, this is a public hearing for input concerning a proposal. It's not a public hearing relative to an additional appropriation. There's been no request yet. We're still in the proposal phase. We're trying to determine what is the best plan to go forward to meet the needs, current needs, and the future needs of the school. So the purpose of this meeting is to solicit input, get discussion, hear the concerns of the community, hear ideas, and let the ad hoc committee take those and continue working on the proposals. So with that, Mike, would you like to join us and introduce your committee? One last thing I forgot, we also have a sign-up sheet for folks that would like additional communications. We'll pass this around the room. You can sign up for news and announcements, and that way you'll be more informed as things break in the town, come out and share information.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody, for taking a little bit of time out of your Saturday afternoon here to learn about what we've been working so hard on over the last months and even years. It's a culmination of a lot of hard work, and I wanted to take just a couple of minutes here just to recognize the people that have been so instrumental in putting this together, and just so you can kind of put a face to these people who have been meeting week after week, putting this plan together. So my name is Mike Virgo. I'm the chair of this committee. I have two children in the school, Michael and Abby, both at the elementary school, and I'm very passionate about schools and really just making sure we're doing the best for our town, our community, and what makes sense for everything. If my committee would just kind of come up here, first I'll introduce and just take 30 seconds just to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you joined the committee. And I'll call Jay Peterson up first, my vice chair, and everybody else come on over here and line up, that'd be great.
Yeah, my name is Jay Peterson. I've lived in town for about 10 years now. And I guess I'm here because I have a very big interest in science and seeing the kids get the scientific education that they need to be able to compete and live effectively in the world that they're going to be facing. And so I came in here with an interest in making sure that we created the laboratories and scientific facilities that they need for the education that they should be getting in the school system. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Osborne. It was about 8.5 years ago when my family and I moved to Connecticut and decided to reside here in the town of North Stonington. That first move here was quite a sticker shock to realize the tax base here in the state of Connecticut as well as the town taxes. But after living here for the first year, I truly started falling in love with the town of North Stonington and realized this is where I want to raise my children. I have 3 lovely children that go to the elementary school currently and hope to raise them here. After learning in my time here about some of the physical issues that the aging facility has been dealing with, I thought it was a great opportunity to be part of a group that's going to strategically plan out something to address the issues that's in the best interest of the town, as well as be the most affordable action to take. So I'm really proud to be a part of this group and hope to be a part of this community that's proud of its schools and students that are proud of its town. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Anderson. I live on Casadic Hill with my wife Heather, 2 kids, Ellie and Ingrid, 9 and 6. They're both in the elementary school here. We've been here for 6 years. Bought some land in 2005, built our forever home, so we plan to be here forever. Obviously, I care about the education of my daughters. I care about the education of all the kids here in North Stonington. I think we need to make our facilities commensurate with the scholastic achievement that our kids have been performing. We can do better to allow them to do better. I joined this committee. I've had a construction background before I became a lawyer. I worked in commercial construction for 4 years, so I thought I could help out there. And I think we're doing a fantastic job in figuring out how to best improve the school and keep the price as affordable as possible. We're still working towards that as well. And thank you very much for being here, and look forward to your comments.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan Spring, 14 years resident of North Stonington, living here with my wife Ellen. We have 4 children, all grown and adult, some with children, that soon will be students here in the district. Having been involved with the town, I truly understand that investment in our school district is important to having a strong town, a strong community. Having worked with volunteers in this town, I know we share the passion for the town and want nothing but better for the town. In our capacity, we also see ourselves as stewards, trying to inform, trying to make decisions to bring our fellow residents forward so they're as aware of as anyone else is as to what the needs are and what resolution can be brought from the resources that we have. And I'd like to make a comment. I've appreciated the leadership in the town and certainly the leadership of our ad hoc committee through Mike Ergo's efforts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Walt Matwick. Been here in town since 1995 and was part of the original ad hoc committee, started in 2009, and just trying to see it to a finish.
I'm Tyler DeBruno. I'm a senior at-wheeler. I've been here all my life in North Stonington. Although I lack experience, I think I make up for it in an understanding of what the kids really need in their education. I really hope that going forward, other students will be able to share the same positive experience that I've had in the school. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Pam Temery. My husband Joe and I moved here about 3 years ago. We have 7 children between us. We have 2 in the school district and 1 grandson. And when I was asked to be on the committee, I think a lot of the reason is because of my background. So I'm a director of pupil services for another school district in Connecticut, and I've done that work for about 17 years now. So I think I bring a unique perspective of looking at budgeting and budget impacts with also the needs of students and kind of the direction of where education is going right now. So I'm happy to serve, and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. I also would just like to take just one more second. Is there any members of the last ad hoc committee here that I didn't just recognize, the committee before ours? Could you stand, please? I'd also like to recognize these members. Walt's with us again. I don't know your name. I'm sorry. Oh, Julie. Okay. Oh, there you go. Passing it on. So, thank you both. And a round of applause, if we could, for everybody. Thank you. So it's been a culmination of a lot of time that's been put into what you're about to see here, and I hope to keep this presentation brief. All comments and questions will be at the end, as Mark said, and there'll be plenty of time for that. That's the purpose for us being here, is to get your feedback on what we put together. The objectives of the ad hoc committee right now is to conduct studies regarding the needs of the respective school facilities, methods of construction, financing, and related matters to meet those needs. A tri-board was put together, as many of you know, over the last year and a half. They had been meeting after the last referendum didn't pass. And the purpose of the tri-board was to bring the three main boards together in our town, which is the Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Finance, and have them come together in order to figure out what is it we need to do, what's important. And the priorities that they had come after a lot of work were science labs, making sure the elementary administration office goes to the front of the school, and the building, fire, health, safety, all these code issues that we have at the schools. That was kind of their summary of it. As you delve into it a little bit further, you can see specifically what we're dealing with at our schools. What we're dealing with regarding safety is we have some asbestos, lead, PCB, and hazmat issues at the schools. Those are toxins that we shouldn't have in schools. We want to discontinue the use of this room, actually, that we're sitting in right here as a multi-purpose room. It's used currently for lunch, assemblies, gym. The floor here is not a floor that should be used for a gym floor. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, I watched as my daughter played basketball and a student fall down and smash his lip. I mean, this is something that happens all the time. You know, the floors that they make for gyms are not like this, so that was an issue. Computer room is currently on the second floor here at the elementary school, and that's a fire hazard for little ones. Kindergartners, first graders shouldn't be on the second floor. So we want to fix that. Again, we said the main office, we want to move that over to the front, so it's a secure place for the kids to come in. And administration has a clear eye to the front. And the tunnel, which we have going under Route 2, although is a very creative way back in the day to get back and forth, certainly, there's some serious safety concerns with that tunnel. In lieu of a lot of things that have happened over the years, safety-wise, it's something that we need to fix. And having met with the state, they agree with this. They wholeheartedly want to see that discontinued for regular usage. Maintenance and energy. These things go without saying. We are spending a lot of money on maintenance and energy at these schools. Replace windows, improve insulation. Should go without saying, fire, ADA, health, energy. All things that we want to be fixed. We want to meet state standards for acoustic and natural lighting. Over the years, we realized acoustics are very important in the classrooms. You don't want to be listening to the classroom next to yours when you're trying to teach as a teacher. And the lighting is very important as well. These are state standards. State standards for indoor air quality. We all want to have fresh, clean air. Should go without saying as well. Fix the roofs. Title IX and code upgrades at the gymatorium, so equal space for each gender. Mechanical, plumbing, electrical systems, all need to be upgraded. Educational upgrades that need to be done. Renovate the classrooms, pre-K through 6th grade. They should all be renovated. We have to fix a lot of things in these classrooms. Technology upgrades, although Mr. Nero did a great job of securing a grant recently to help with a lot of the technology, there are still needs that we have to take care of. A centralized kitchen, which we determined is a way that we want to go to control costs a little bit. So we're looking, as you'll see in the plans, a dedicated centralized kitchen, as well as a space for cafeteria, multi-purpose space. So in other words, as I said at the beginning, we need to have a dedicated space for gym with the correct floor, and it'd be nice if we could eat in a different space that wasn't the gym, so we wouldn't have a conflict of class there. All programs are available at the first level here. So again, little children really shouldn't be at the second level. It's a fire hazard. And sometimes they have to go up there for certain programs right now. We want to bring all the classes that little ones have to use down to the first level. Jay alluded to this, updated science, biology, chemistry, physics labs over at the middle high school. We want to have state-of-the-art facilities. We have facilities that we're using right now that are 70 years old. new space for the Wheeler cafeteria, and a new chorus band room, updated room, basically, so we can have the right acoustics and everything. So this is kind of delving into the specifics that we need to fix at both buildings. Just to give you a little summary of what we've done to date as a committee. So I think it's pretty clear we have a really strong committee. I'm proud of the committee, they've done a great job. What we did was, when we started, we could only assume that the last referendum didn't pass because it was too expensive. That's kind of where we started. We figured, okay, it didn't pass, it was a great project, the ad hoc committee prior did a great job. So how can we make the project cost less but still address the needs of the town? That was where we kind of started. So we said, we'll demolish fewer walls. As if we're doing a renovation in our own house, we would put less plumbing in place. We try to use what's there. That's the approach we took. We made a number of different options for renovation. Renovating space for additional classrooms at the elementary school, resulting in a pre-K through 6th grade configuration, made sense both educationally and fiscally. So 6th grade currently goes over to the middle school right now. By keeping the 6th grade here, we actually get a 10% swing in reimbursement from the state by fully utilizing this building. Years ago, the 6th grade was at this building. And now we would bring them back here in order to fully realize reimbursement. So we get a full 46.07% reimbursement, nearly half the cost of the renovation from the state. We performed strategic environmental testing. So basically, I mentioned earlier that there's hazmat, PCB, chemical issues within the schools. We knew this already at parts of the middle school. We did testing here at the elementary school. It's the same issues over here. We have problems that we need to fix over here. Those chemicals don't belong in schools. We actually, because the years have gone on, we haven't passed this in the past. What happened is now we had to actually test the paint. We hadn't had to test the paint before, now we test the paint, there's issues with the paint, so that has to be fixed. So as you can see, the years go on, the issues become more obvious that we have more things that we have to fix to remediate that. I look at that as a blessing, and it took a little bit longer. Now we kind of know what the issues we're dealing with are, and we can fix them properly. I mentioned the 46.07%. So what we did as a committee, we realized pretty quickly we want to do a renovate as new or an alterations, additions approach. What that does is it gives us 46.07% based on our current reimbursement rate from the state, and that helps us to offset the cost paid by our personal North Stonington taxes. So nearly half of the cost is going to be appropriated from the state. We don't have to pay for it. So that's why we looked at doing this approach. Also, when you renovate as new, all these glaring issues automatically have to be fixed. The state requires them to be fixed. So these code issues, all the issues we're talking about, they have to be fixed. Acoustic, PCB hazmat, windows, roofs, acoustics, temperature, heating, cooling, code, electrical, fire, health. There's a long list. They all get fixed with this approach. I met with the State of Connecticut School Construction Grant staff to review the scope, and they initially really like what we're coming up with here. They agree with it. We also met with school administrators and faculty to discuss the program needs and concept designs. So we took the time to not only meet with the principals, superintendent, but I actually had a meeting, and Pam also came with me. We met with both staff on both sides of the road, and they're in favor of these approaches. They like what we're putting together here. They think it's great. We also formed 3 work groups, which are finance, and as you'll see, building use across the street, and communications. And we've discussed the deed and solutions with the Wheeler Library Board. You may have heard, if you're not familiar, the deed to the school across the street is held by the Wheeler Library. When the Wheeler family gave that property, the Wheeler Library Board was responsible for that deed. So whatever we do with that building over there, we have to work with them, and they're willing to work with us for what makes sense for our kids. I want to let you know, we discussed a number of construction options. So what I'm presenting to you today is the culmination of the work that we've done as a group. And I just want to tell you a few of the options we looked at, and there were a lot. We looked at renovation of the current middle high school where it is. And that was kind of what was looked at last time. And as we looked at that, we realized it costs more than what we're about to propose to you today. And you're going to see that what we propose to you today is a much better facility for our kids. The construction phasing, if we were to try to renovate that building, would be very difficult, and it would probably take close to 4 years to complete. And the other thing is the code requirements at that school would be very difficult. We have ceilings that are too low. The middle school wing of that building is pretty much beyond repair. We would have to tear that down anyway, but other parts of the building, the ceilings are too low. So we really looked at that in detail. We looked at switching the middle school and high school with the elementary school for space utilization. So we said, maybe we could switch and that would cost less. You know, we could get our elementary over across the street. We have a smaller population for the middle high school, bring them over here. It costs more. Phasing would be a nightmare, to say the least. To try to phase the kids, it would be a complete disruption of education. It's not the right way to go. The piecemeal approach. So why don't we just do the bare minimums? The absolute bare minimums. Let's do that, and that should save us money. It doesn't. And I'm going to go over that in the next slide. Renovation of one school first, then another 1 year later. Again, difficult to estimate the costs of this because reimbursement interest rates could change, but it would cost several $1 million more over time using this approach, and our reimbursement rate would be much lower. So, again, doesn't really make sense, and besides the fact that we, as a committee, recognize that both schools have glaring issues. We cannot put one school aside to do the other. We have serious issues on both sides of the road. And do nothing at all. It's not an option. And you'll see the things that need to be done. We just can't. We're going to continue to educate our kids here. We have serious issues that have to be fixed. So no longer can we put these things off. I want to go over just one of the options. And I said all the options we looked at cost more. But here's one for you to see. This is the bare minimum option, the capital improvement approach. Let's just fix the bare necessities, and that would be hazmat remediation, so the chemicals that are in our schools, get rid of them. Indoor air quality, fix it. Roof replacement has to be done. Fire suppression, sprinklers, need them. Security, we have to fix the security issues we have. ADA deficiencies, so all students, regardless of disability, have access, has to be fixed. Existing science labs, I told you, 70 years old. We can't teach certain things. We can't have hands-on teaching, we have to fix them. Kitchens, a lot of stuff would remain, no site work, no building additions or demolition. Doing it this way would cost us $27.9 million. That's assuming phases are done in small encompassing projects. And this is also assuming reimbursement doesn't really change, which we pretty much know that won't happen. Reimbursements change. And some of this stuff is reimbursed at a lower level. So what you see here is these issues are all issues that have to be fixed. I mean, I don't think we can debate these issues. These are all the bare minimum. So to do just those issues, it costs us more than what we're going to propose to you tonight. So this leads us to the approach that makes the most sense educationally and fiscally for our town, as voted unanimously by our committee. So what I'd like to do is bring Rusty from Quisenberry Architecture, who's been working with us for many years on the project, and we actually brought him back because of his familiarity, and we are really happy. He's been working very hard for us, coming up with different things. Our committee's driving the ship on this, and he's had to really work hard to put something together. And I'd like to let him kind of show you what we put together, and then I'll wrap it up with a few other additional details. So let's just come on up.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon. So what I'll do is give you an overview of the site as it exists, and then we'll look at the elementary school and what changes are being proposed at the elementary school, and also then go on to the high school and talk about the high school itself. This image that you're seeing before you really represents a solution, but initially what I'd like to do is identify just what the existing conditions are. This space here is the current Wheeler Middle High School. This is the gymatorium in yellow, and then this is the elementary school in yellow as well. So as you can see, we've got Route 2 that separates the site, and we have the connector, that's the underground connector between the high school and the gymatorium. These are all the assets that we currently have. We're going to start with the elementary school, and the goal here is to really look at what we can do to bring the 6th grade over, to improve education and meet all the educational criteria that's been established by the Board of Education. We've looked at many options, and you may also remember the addition of the gymnasium at one point. But one of the parameters that we set for ourselves here was that to look at spaces in terms of how flexible can they be, and how can we use spaces for multiple purposes. One of the ideas that we established is by having a cafeteria or a kitchen that's shared by the two facilities would be a cost-saving measure. And so we've incorporated that into this particular approach. What you see here in red is the cafeteria addition, or the kitchen addition, I should say. Also next to it is a service area, right here, and also some additional parking. So for each school, because we would be bringing over the 6th grade, we felt that there would be a need to add some parking on that side of the school adjacent to the elementary school. So starting with the elementary school itself, what you'll notice is there's the main entrance. It doesn't change. However, one of the spaces right here in the front, this is currently a music room, has been repurposed for the administrative offices. That's one of the goals that was established. It's a measure that will increase security because there'll be a direct sight line from the office to anybody coming into the building. Along with that, what we've done is we've created a secure vestibule. Anybody coming into the building will come through the main doors, and these set of doors will be locked. They have to come through the main office and then come back out. Now, the second set of doors there, so when students are coming in and out, there's a different protocol. But this way, you completely control who comes in and out of the building, especially after hours or once the students are in school. So that was one of the changes that was proposed. Another aspect of this layout is you'll see that the gymnasium, the space that we're in right now, has been reorganized. It's been mentioned many times that the cafeteria being in this space is a problem. And a problem in the sense that you're having activities in here, athletic activities, students are in here, and then you're eating lunch. And that's not, from a health point of view, that's not the best situation to be in. So the goal is to separate out the gymnasium, and that's what we're accomplishing here. The way we're doing it is that the stage actually goes away. We expand the gymnasium over there, and on the rear of this space, we would create a stage area similar to this, and beyond it would be a multi-purpose room, which would also serve as a cafeteria. By doing that, it gives us a lot of flexibility in this space. In other words, there could be an assembly here with the stage available off the gymnasium space, and also that doubles up as a space for the cafeteria and smaller venues when the students are in the cafeteria or you need to use it as an assembly space, you have the availability of that stage as well. Again, thinking in ways where we can not expand but use space more creatively for multi-purposes, and that's what this is reflecting. This space right here is that central kitchen addition. You know, one of the things that happens, you've got two kitchens, that means there's staff at both spaces, there's also equipment at both spaces. There's a lot going on there. Central kitchens with shared facilities is quite common in many, many districts. And that idea, especially for us here, considering that the two schools are so close to each other, makes a lot of sense. And it's also a great savings to the project itself. As was mentioned earlier, we made sure that we try to reuse as many spaces as we can without tearing down walls. So we maintain most of the walls. We try to use the toilets where they are so that the plumbing can be reused. within reason, because there are programs that need to be modified and we have to meet certain educational criteria. So we try to do that throughout the building. Also, if you'll notice that the zoning of the building has changed slightly in the sense that all the public spaces are on this side of the hallway, and the academic spaces are on the, that would be, I guess, the north side of the building. First grade, kindergarten, pre-K on the main level, adjacent to drop-off areas, adjacent to playgrounds. The second floor on this building is really lends itself to the fact that we've got space up there which we can use for the 6th grade. And that's really a key driver in this layout. What you'll notice is we've got a 5th and 6th grade section of the building. 5th and 6th graders are slightly older than the elementary kids. And in many districts, you'll notice that they build 5-6 schools. Well, one way we've accomplished that is a slight separation of the 5th and 6th grade, but there's plenty of room for classrooms up here. We also have the appropriate number of restrooms that have been introduced into these spaces. And overall, every space, every educational need that has been identified, space has been provided for that purpose. Now we look at the site, going back to the site, we're going to look at the high school in this particular example. The red, once again, represents the addition, and in this approach, and we've done many different approaches, what we've created is an addition to the gymatorium building. Very different approach from everything else that we've looked at, but the advantages really here are the fact that we can now meet all the criteria that we've established educationally. And we've accomplished it adjacent to the gymnasium building. A big issue here is the fact that everybody goes back and forth between the gym building and the existing middle high school. That will no longer need to happen. The building will be completely consolidated on the, I guess, the southwest side of Route 2, and all programs will be met at that location. What's interesting here is that you'll notice that the site, it lends itself to accommodate this addition. Now there is parking here that extends further out, and that parking will be reduced, but you'll notice that we have the ability to add parking right along Route 2 as well. So in evaluating the impact of putting the building on this side of the street, we looked at the parking to say, what's going to happen with parking? And actually what we found is that with this addition of parking, we will be what I would call parking neutral. And what I mean by that is we have about 238 spaces on this side as well as the other side of Route 2. And now we'll have about 240 spaces all on this side of Route 2. So that's really positive because actually it gives us some additional parking somewhere in the range of 60 to 90 spaces on the other side of Route 2 as an overflow and in terms of event parking. As we look at the building, once again, we come in to what right now is the Board of Education main entrance. The administrative offices would be can easily fit in the space that's currently occupied by the Board of Education. And once again, we create a secure hallway and access to the building. Most parents and visitors will come through this entrance. There would be a second entrance, and that would be the student entrance. And all students who come into the building from that entrance, there's a bus loop. And I'm just going to go back here. You'll notice that this is the bus loop. That's one entrance, the main entrance, and that's also right there, the student entrance. So students come in here and then go into the main addition, which is the high school, middle school, high school. The advantage here is, once again, we're able to zone this building. You'll notice that very easily we can zone it from this point over is a public space, and then from that point down is more of the academic space. So that's an advantage to the layout of this building. The other aspect of zoning of a building is, in this case, the 7th and 8th graders are really at one wing of the building. So they're, once again, separated from the high school kids. Now, you don't have that type of a problem in this community, but in many communities, parents don't want their 7th and 8th graders mixing with the high schoolers. And that's important but here, we don't have the issue, but we've provided for that separation nonetheless. The cafeteria is at the knuckle of the building, and it would be also serving as a small venue space, because we've got a music room that would have a folding partition, so one could use that as a stage for small events, or use the cafeteria for the community and other events as well. The building classrooms are right-sized, and by that I mean that instead of having 15 classrooms of the same size, 700-800 square feet, what we've looked at is the enrollment and how many students are in each class. By doing that, and by understanding how many students are typically in each class, we've been able to create multiple size rooms. In other words, we've got a room that's 500 square feet because they only have about 10 or 12 kids in that space. Or we have a room that's 700 square feet because there are going to be as many as 15 to 18 students in that room. So by right sizing, what we're doing is we're really making the building smaller, which is an advantage to us and to you in particular, because the size of the building and the reimbursement that we receive from the state are directly connected. If we meet the state criteria in terms of the size of the building, you get that full reimbursement from the state. So that's an important aspect of what we're trying to accomplish here. You'll notice you come in, the media center is right there, guidance, so all the administrative functions are right in front. On the main level is art, graphics, CAD labs, technology is infused throughout the building, and the cafeteria. On the second level, we have the sciences, we have biology, chemistry, and physics. Again, new spaces designed to meet the current curriculum for science programs, which is very different from when these existing science labs are designed. There was a very different program in place. And then you'll notice that there are all these different sized classrooms that are on the second level as well. There's a few other aspects of the building that we should also discuss. This would be what we call a high-performance building. The state requires us to look at buildings nowadays as a high-performance building, and by that I mean it has to be energy efficient. We have to meet certain energy criteria so that our buildings don't just use a lot of energy, that we have the appropriate amount of insulation, and the walls we use very highly efficient mechanical systems. All that will need to be integrated into this building. Another aspect that we're looking at is photovoltaics. We want to make this building as green as possible. The potential of a green roof over the media center. These are all ideas, and the green roof over the media center, I should say, would tie in with the botany and biology programs, again, become part of the curriculum. So it's important to consider all these, and we have in the development of this program.
Thank you, Russell. So what you see here is what we've worked out. Kind of goes into the budget and what we've done. So the scope includes everything I've already talked about. And you can see there all the security, Title IX, building infrastructure, state codes, everything we've discussed. And then the budget. So after reimbursement on the whole project, we're talking about what we've come up with so far is a $21.21 million project. And if we were to get a space standard waiver, which is something that's quite possible, it brings it down to $20.85 million. I think it's important that you know that the committee, this is a public hearing. So what we're working on right now is ideas, and we're working hard. We actually have a workshop scheduled Monday for future strategies to bring this cost down, and we believe we're going to be able to do that on a good scale, actually. And we're exploring methods like alternative construction, energy conservation strategies, and maintenance supplies for potential additional cost savings, as well as ongoing operational budgets, things like reverse auctioning for building supplies. These are ideas, things many of you have probably not heard of, but we're talking about them, and I expect when this actually does go to referendum, should we get there, you're going to see a lesser cost. I want to talk about a couple of more specifics, and then we'll get to questions and comments. Instructional opportunities. So while we're doing this so we can better instruct our kids. I mean, that's part of the main reason as to why we want to upgrade our facilities. So here are some reasons that things that are going to be helped when we do this upgrade. Decreased passing time between buildings will increase instructional time for students. There's a lot of wasted time when we could be instructing them, going through the tunnel back and forth. Flexible use of space allows for opportunities to expand program options and meet the current and future needs of students. As Rusty alluded to, we're building classrooms that we can be flexible with. Depending on how many kids are in a class, we can switch it around. We're trying to think for the future here. We want to expand and enhance the program of study, schedule flexibility, virtual classrooms, the type of scheduling we can do at the school. Right now, we're really held back with what we're able to do with the facilities as far as scheduling. Early childhood requirements for space developmentally appropriate for instruction. We want to have the right space for the right grades. National Teachers Association recommendations for STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics programming. As I said, we're trying to instruct at the middle school. We can't do hands-on experimentation with our kids in the science classrooms right now. We can't do it because we don't have the facilities to do it. Providing an environment to support 21st century skills, innovation, collaboration, critical thinking, and research. This is a big deal for our kids, and we have great programs right now. We're graduating kids. I don't know if you saw an article recently in the paper. One of our residents talked about how we have kids going to colleges that other schools, it's not happening. We have a great situation going on here. We need to give our teachers and our kids the facilities that they deserve so we can go above and beyond what we're doing right now. That speaks to the fact that not only will this address our facilities and our educational opportunities, but this is going to improve academic performance. And better ventilation in facilities leads to fewer health issues that currently result in absenteeism and a reduction of health complaints. Kids get sick because we don't have the right ventilation in here. I mean, many of us have kids, and you see, this is a proven fact. Since individuals associate various feelings with various settings, aesthetic improvements to buildings will generate positive attitudes among students and teachers. Aesthetics, many studies out there, aesthetics show when you improve your facilities, there's a better overall feeling. And this is something that has been tried and true. Temperature control will reduce stress and improve academic performance. I mean, my son all the time, I've said this example plenty of times, but he comes home and he has a bad day because of how the temperature is in school. That's ridiculous. I mean, and I shouldn't have to hear that. I should be hearing about what he's learned. You know, it's not acceptable. We need to do better for our kids. Improved lighting and acoustics, I talked about this. It allows for more focus. Instructional time will be added with the removal of having to use the tunnel for back and forth to class. Increased security and safety measures will put students at comfort and improve discipline. And sufficient space in science labs will allow for more effective instruction. We already talked about that. I want to talk about economic benefits a little bit too. And we went into a lot of these subjects a lot more in the recent tri-board meetings, but I want to bring a piece of everything so you can see. You know, there's a Yale research study that talked about how the economy benefits when you invest in your local schools. And the research shows that all else holding constant, homes in high-performing school districts sell for higher prices than in low-performing school districts. Several studies have shown that people are more willing to live in a neighborhood where there's good schools, even if it means paying higher taxes. We hear that all the time here. Everybody that moves here that has kids here says they moved here for the schools. I mean, I think I've heard that from nearly everybody that has kids. And we have to invest in those schools. And the impact can measure in thousands of dollars of increased home values, as much as 14%. In study using data from a 15-year construction program to revitalize New Haven area school districts buildings, Yale researchers found that school construction has a significant and large effect on home prices, with home prices rising 11.1% following the construction. They also found that this effect does not diminish significantly over time. So we talk about our grand list, what this could mean. If the Yale study were to hold true for North Stonington, it's a potential of $13 million more in revenue over the next 10 years if we were to move forward. Now, this is based on one study. There's other studies out there. You can do your own research. But we wanted to make sure it's bigger than just the facilities. This is bigger than that. This is for our economy. This is for our community. So to kind of sum up the project rationale for why we've decided to go with what we've just shown you today, we determined that doing this project in this manner will be the smartest approach because we received nearly half of the cost from the state. And to do the project as renovated as new will allow us to not foot that whole bill as a town. We get reimbursement from the state. It makes sense. There's abundance of fixes that have to happen in our buildings that have been outlined. Now, I don't think we can disagree with what we've said are the must-dos. And to do these in this manner, if we address them in a project like this, we get the money back, and not fixing these issues will likely result in the demise of the schools and ultimately resulting in potential school closure. And we have to fix these things. Delaying the project will cost our town millions of dollars in increased costs due to rising interest rates and project escalation, as well as lost revenue that would likely be realized through this investment. Besides that, we don't know where the reimbursement rates will go. We've been lucky that the reimbursement rates are currently as high as they are. The project we propose addresses all the needs in an affordable and educationally sound manner for our town. So to summarize, you see what we're going to be doing here. The middle high school, all the buildings will be consolidated on one side of the road. Building infrastructure will be updated to meet current codes, health, safety, fire. Building, air quality, lighting, and acoustics updated to meet state standards. Energy efficient green buildings. In North Stonington, that's very important to us. We moved here because we care about the environment, most of us. We're an eco-friendly town, and that's what we want our facilities to reflect that. Right now they're bleeding heat out of the windows and all these issues that we cannot fix the way the current facilities are. New science labs, instructional classrooms, all educational needs addressed in academic building addition for the middle high. North Stonington Elementary School, the main office will be at the entrance as it needs to be. Infrastructure, again, health, safety, fire, air quality, lighting, acoustics, state standards, all those will be upgraded. Hazmat issues remediated, energy efficiency optimized, centralized kitchen, which again shows how we're trying to save money. We're building one kitchen that's going to cook for both schools. We'll bring the food over, it's done at other schools. Another way that we've been trying to save a buck, basically. And it makes a lot of sense. And all educational needs will be addressed. So, the only thing I didn't mention that I think I need to mention is regarding the school as it is over there. So right now in this budget, where the middle high school is right there is to be demolished in the project. We've already found that that building is so far beyond repair that it makes a lot more sense to tear it down and pay to have it taken down. We could potentially use that for athletic fields. We are currently talking to a potential partner in the LEARN organization that might have interest in renting the other building from us, this building. And that's something we're looking at that could bring in some revenue for our town, actually. They are looking for a long-term partner. They are an educational organization, and they could be a good partner for us, and we should have more information on that in the next couple of weeks. So, and again, the middle part, which is the 1996 edition right here, will be used for central office, including special education. So just basically for teachers and maybe some special education stuff going on over there. With that being said, I will turn it back over to Mark. Mark's here. No? Mark's right in front of me. And
Thanks very much, Mike. There should be materials passed out to the audience, which is the slides that has just been presented by the committee. And we'll open up the floor for comments and questions, please. Yes, ma'am. There's a microphone that should come around for you.
I have a loud voice.
Right here, you'll be surprised. Thank you.
My name is Cindy Laker. I've been in this town for 45 years. My children were educated here. I have no grandchildren in this town, but the two grandchildren I do have live in another small town in this state with very small class sizes, and they're having a great time. It's wonderful. Their education is marvelous. Their education is every bit as good as their father and uncle got in this town. No two ways about it. I was trying to think of the number of referendums I voted in, and I can't remember how many. Countless referendums in this town that failed time after time after time. And he used the comment bare minimum. I can remember bare minimums being done instead of projects being undertaken. I remember when the gymatorium was completed, and I talked to then teacher Dalton Sales. I don't know how many of you would ever remember Dalton, but I do. And I said, Dalton, isn't this great? He says, yeah, we're only 20 years behind now. And I guess my question is, how far behind are we going to be if we accept this project? Or are we going to meet what needs to be done?
Good, you feel like you can address that?
Thank you for your comments and your feedback.
Oh, and one more thing, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I want to congratulate the committee on their work. Very good presentation, lots and lots of work, and to the architect, thank you.
Thank you. As far as being behind when we put this project together, we have put together a state-of-the-art project. This isn't going to be something that puts us behind. Now, would we like it if it was possibly maybe a little bit bigger? I mean, that's what we tried for last time. I think what we've tried to do here is kind of a minimalist approach and put together what meets the needs of our town as it is now. We are allowing, this project allows for an increase in population around 15 to 20% spread throughout, so there's room. But as far as the facilities, they're going to be state-of-the-art. We're not going to be behind at all. It's going to be a great project that we put together, and we're proud of what we've put together as far as the cost, given that it's a couple of years later, and we were able to actually bring the cost down. And if you remember last time, since you've been around, we were told it should be 10% per year that it would actually increase. We came back with a project that was less than last time, so.
Does that answer your question? More comments, questions? Van in the back.
I can always know.
Van in the back, please.
Mike.
Mark, how much this year, this time through, it's 21,200,000 that the town will be paying. What was it last time? What was the town's share on the previous proposal?
The share in terms of percentage or the share?
No, well, how much in dollar terms was the town going to have to pay last time? I thought it was 22 million and some change.
We're recalling it's around 24 was the town's portion.
Oh, okay. So the amount, there's this 21,210,000. Does that, First Selectman Murphy had said something about putting a new roof on the old high school and middle school to keep it safe and watertight. Is that in that budget figure?
The figure for the roof, as Sean had made that comment, he was asking us to look into that. We have gotten some numbers on that. It's not in here.
Okay, but it's on. What about it looks like the athletic fields are impacted by the new high school. Are we going to have to do new athletic fields? And is that in that number?
So let me just follow up on the roofs. It's not that we're counting that out. We may actually do that. As I kind of alluded to, Van, I think We're going to see some pretty good savings with the alternative construction methods we're talking about. So we're hoping when we see those, and we're pretty confident that that's going to happen, we can look at the roofs and see how that all works out. As far as the athletic fields, it doesn't actually impact them. If you notice right here, we kind of superimposed this parking right here, but there's parking currently right here. What we did was we shortened it, and then we moved more parking over here. So actually, it's a little bit different than what you've seen at other tri-board meetings. We changed it around to, because I think when you saw the last one, the parking was actually out here, and we took and we moved it over here in order to not have interference with the athletic field as much as possible.
And the last one is, at the tri-board meeting, you spoke about trying to economize, and that you were going to leave plumbing in the walls. If we are spending to build as new, and some of that plumbing, I'm assuming, is quite old, is that prudent to basically have old wine and new skins?
I don't understand the question.
I think you were talking at the tri-board about reusing the plumbing that was already in the walls. You weren't going to break into the walls. You're going to use things that were there. Perhaps I misunderstood.
I'm sorry, yeah. I apologize if I didn't articulate that. We're going to try to use as much plumbing as possible that's already there here, but for the new building, it's going to be all new plumbing. I mean, we're not going to take plumbing from the old structure and bring it over. My apologies if I didn't.
That's understood, but should we be using, whenever we're doing so much work, should we be using old plumbing, since we're in here getting the job done in so many different ways? Shouldn't we be using, making it as maintenance free as possible and with the longest life possible?
Absolutely. I think we're going to take a good account of what we have, and if it seems useful to make use of it, then we would do that. But if not, we would not. And we want to be prudent and not have to go back digging into a wall 5 years later. So certainly we're going to be taking account of that. Thank you for those comments. We'll certainly make sure that we're paying close attention to that as we move forward. Yes, sir, on the side.
Not used to using microphone, so I apologize for that. Thank you, first of all, for the wonderful sales presentation this afternoon. Got a couple of easy questions for you. One, with the email list that we had passed around, the papers that you sent out in the presentation, is there any way we could get that in digital format, so those people that may not have the chance to attend these, we can forward those and get as much contact as possible?
It's up to you if you want to let us use those, but it'll also be on the website.
So it'll be posted on the website, but I think we can forward that if you want to send an email back to either the selectmen or to the committee. Sure.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, when I heard something about walkthroughs of the building previously on hey, these are the things that are wrong. Is there going to be another one of those?
I don't think one's scheduled just yet, but let Mike speak to that.
I can tell you last time, we don't have any scheduled, but I know last time we did do some of that, and Superintendent Nero has been more than accommodating when people want to take a look at the buildings, and perhaps that's great feedback. Perhaps we should schedule a couple of those this time around. I know we did them last time, so again, it's a hearing, and we're hearing the feedback, and maybe we'll look into that.
Wonderful, thank you. And then you talked about a meeting on Monday. Is there a time and place for that?
It should be at the new town hall, 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Next thing, you talked about specific safety issues with the tunnel and historic issues. What has happened with that?
Could you be more specific?
Yeah, early in the presentation, you were talking about the tunnel safety, and that there were specific safety concerns, security issues with that tunnel. What are those?
Yeah, sure. Well, specifically with the tunnel, the kind of the main concern, anybody who's familiar with Newtown, obviously we're all familiar with Newtown, the tragedy over there. The tunnel is set up so that there's no egress. There's only one way in and one way out. First of all, that's When I went to the state to meet with them, they were extremely concerned about that. The fact that we still had a setup like that is not something that's advisable for our town. Certainly we've been lucky, we haven't had any issues, but in the position that I'm in and the rest of our committee is in, we're not in one that when we see an issue like that, it's a responsibility of the community to fix that. So it's not falling apart, nothing like that. It's just, it opens us up to potential problems. So that's kind of the main issue. If you remember last time around, there was, you may not remember, I apologize. Last time around, there was talk of building like a structure to kind of enclose the tunnel from one building to the other. And again, this project, the reason we're building it the way we are is that with the project we're proposing at the middle high school right now, we're able to put the dollars that we spend as taxpayers into the facility to bring a state-of-the-art facility, whereas if we were having to fix up the other building, we're spending a lot of money on fixing things that are not going to really in turn educate our kids. So.
Right, absolutely no argument on, I have 2 kids in the school system, so absolutely want to have best education for them, but let's see, moving forward. So how much have we already spent on this project, development, architecture, handouts, flyers, meetings, that kind of thing?
We haven't, all we've spent on this project, last year the Board of Finance allocated us $25,000 to spend in order to figure out what to do. And we've spent about, I think, 12 grand on architecture, drawings, and Rusty's probably working for $4.45 an hour by now, I think, all the time we've been using him for. So I really can't understate. I mean, the guy's been by the phone every time I've called. So we're actually in pretty good shape. We haven't spent any money. We haven't done any site work. That would come when we ultimately have some sort of approval from the town.
And that brings up actually the next question. It's a wonderful lead-in. I'm sure that many of the residents are fully aware of the emergency services building and all the fun that's been going through, how long that's taken. So, as a taxpayer, I'm somewhat fearful, I guess, in the sense of authorizing you to be good stewards of my money when there have been any past issues. So I guess what assurances can be stated in this project to ensure that I don't just spend money needlessly for my kids that'll just disappear into a website?
Sure. I mean, I can speak as someone who attended the emergency services presentation, not at the hearing, but at the selectmen's meeting. And I can tell you that their predicament is not the same as what we're doing here. So from how they explained it is they basically had some old numbers, and it seems like through no fault of their own, really, there was an anomaly with construction costs. So basically they had numbers, I think 2 years, there was a dip in construction dip, and then there was a large increase. They got their numbers when there was that dip. So in essence, I think there was about a 17% flip in the cost. And what I can tell you right now is you're seeing numbers that are up to date. Our numbers are not, we're not in the same situation that they were in, and we would be trying to come to referendum very quickly, within the next couple of months, should people want to. And the other thing I would say about us, and I'm not on their committee, but I can tell you our committee is, as highly as I can speak of Rusty and his firm, we're directing this. He's working for us. We're not, and that's why, we're doing some things that are outside of what he normally does in order to bring the cost down. And I think if you pay attention in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be happy to see a cost reduction or perhaps more services available through this project.
That is wonderful to hear as well. But I hope that you can understand my concern as well with, for example, how we've been progressing with the funds. I mean, earlier, it was mentioned we've had an uncountable number of referendums already, right? So if it continues to push on, I mean, that took from 2008, we're in 2016 now. So things will continue to change. It's going to be an ongoing concern.
Yeah, so Mike was just saying there is escalation calculated in the project, but to your comment about assurances, I think that's why we're going through this process and trying to communicate with you as to what the committee's looking at, trying to be very specific in all the different aspects. And this is the forum to bring some things up in case they've missed anything. So that we can consider that going forward.
Wonderful, and to, I guess, make it more specific then, as a concern from the community, I would say that would be something that the committee needs to look at, is making sure that it's not just communication, but ensuring that that sale to the public is carried through. Because I don't think the community wants to see two large projects like that fail. I especially don't want to see education drop because of that.
Thank you.
Last thing,
Go ahead.
hopefully now it's I think it more. With the state reimbursement, we talked about that, how that fluctuates and such things. So we're saying that basically until we approve a referendum, that is not guaranteed. Is that true?
So my understanding is the percentage reimbursement rate is set this year. If we can bring the project to the state before the end of June, which is the cutoff for the year, that is the percentage that is set for the project. The committee has already met with the subcommittee up at Hartford and walked through the approach that we're taking so that they have a handle on the percentages that we would gain for reimbursement. The rates for the next year might be set, but after that, it's always a little uncertain.
So prior to the referendum, no guarantees.
Prior to the referendum, my understanding
Prior
is
to our approval, there is no financial guarantee that we will get that
the
money.
percentage is set. The state would still approve it after we send them the application. So our referendum doesn't guarantee, but if the state doesn't approve the project, then we would go forward regardless.
Okay, that right there was what I wanted to hear.
Okay. Yes, sir. Microphone, please.
I don't really need it.
Yes, you do.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Barty, 379 Mass Road. And we've all been here, and here, and here. And we spent a lot of money in past proposals. It just seems to be going on and on. I really think it's important that this comes out with a positive vote. There are a few people in town that still think that we would save money if we sent our kids out of town. Most research shows it would not save money. You might even spend more. Also, that's an awful message to send to our kids. Have a fine school now. Why would we want to toy with it? And also, there's an awful lot of research in small communities, especially island communities off the coast of Maine, that chose to close their school. And what happened is the very fabric of the community, the very soul of the community disintegrated. And I taught out on Fisher's Island for 3 years, taught in a small school, much smaller, and they did all that research. And even though it was expensive, they chose to keep the school open out there because it's part of the very fabric of the community. So I hope we get a yes vote this year. Thank you.
In the back there, Michael, on the right side, lady, please. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Julie Lowe, and I've been in the town of North Stonington for about 5 or 6 years. So I've been witnessing all of these recent referendums for the school as well as the emergency buildings. And going back to the question over here about the guaranteed reimbursement, I just want to get a little clarification from my own mind. You mentioned that even after the referendum, it's still not guaranteed that it still has to get the state approval. If we don't need that state approval before the June date that you mentioned, is that then take us into the next year for that approval rate? And how does that rolling number continue to work until we can actually get a full guarantee?
So my understanding is the town has to go to referendum and approve the project. We'll submit it to the state before the cutoff date for the end of June. The state has to make a decision on the project. Now, we won't know immediately, maybe a few months during the course of the year. Officially, they don't have to let us know for another 12 months. So we'll be in that loop waiting for the state to hear, which is why it's so important to this gentleman's question that we're considering escalation costs on the project, because we know there's going to be that time phase. So as long as we get it submitted before the end of June and in the queue for the state to rule on, we'll get a disposition on the project.
At that 46.07%.
For that reimbursement rate, that would be applicable for the projects that are presented this year. That's right.
Thank you.
Mark, generally the state, when it reissues a reimbursement, when the state reissues a reimbursement, it generally lasts for 2 years. We're in a 2-year cycle. So I would venture to say sometime, and again, if you approve it this year, when the application goes in, it'll be at that rate. If after June, it could go up or down if they decide that they're going to change the reimbursement rate. It was 41%. The last time we went for a project, it's now at 46.7. So it could go up or down, but we're assured that this rate holds until June. And that's on every grant that we wrote over, computer grants and all the technology grants.
But to be clear, any changes would be relevant to projects that are submitted after the end of June.
If you don't pass something this year, it changes after July 1st, and whatever that.
Then we're into another evaluation. John, and then we'll go over on this side. I'm sorry, sir.
John Olson. Mike, I just wanted some clarification. Toward the end of your presentation, you said that the building across the street was too far gone and was planned to be demolished. But then you went on to say that potentially for income to the town, we might rent it to learn. Is that something that's seriously considered, or is that something that's going to, if we do rent it in the condition that you propose it to be, would that then open the town to liability because now we're renting to someone to use something we deem demolishable?
Sure. There's a couple pieces to that question. So that building is really in more than three different parts. So let me just explain it a little bit more clearly. So this piece right here is the middle high school wing. You can't see it because we took it away because we're going to demolish it. We budgeted to demolish that wing. This piece right here is the newest part of the building, built in '96, and we would plan to keep that for central office. So that would actually remain, and our media center is part of that, which is a really great resource for the community. Potentially, we might be able to use that for other town meetings and things of that nature. Now, to your final part of the question, the wing that we're talking about potentially leasing is that wing. And Learn definitely has some interest in it. I met with them twice. The second time they came through with their architect. They realized that if they were to rent that space, they would have to spend money on it. They're an organization that supports the community through a variety of different ways, and special education is one of their expert areas. And so they have a use potentially for, and this would actually benefit our community as well, because certain students we send to them, not near here, would actually potentially be able to remain educated right at that building. Now, they're going to know within the next 30 days if they have true interest. We're certainly not signed up to do anything yet, but I wanted to let everybody know that was something we're looking at because our committee has responsibly been trying to look at options. Now, if we decided, if the powers that be decided that wasn't an option we wanted to do, it's not a worry. We could certainly just demolish that building if we wanted to. For our school, you have to understand, we're held to a different standard because middle school and high school, there are certain standards that we have to be held to when it comes to hazmat, environmental concerns. We can't have certain things in the building, but other organizations aren't necessarily held to the same standards. So, and they would be willing to potentially put some money into it where it's not something that we feel as a committee makes sense given what we need to do with the school as a whole. So, does that help?
Yes, that definitely helps, but part of that question still is, as landlords of renting out a portion of the building, are then we ultimately responsible for any liability or in hazmat situations or in the renovation for the purposes of leasing? would that then become the town's responsibility financially, or you're saying they're willing to pay for any upgrade?
What we've told them from minute one is that what has to be done inside the building would be their responsibility should they want to rent it. So it's,
Okay, so that's part of the ongoing discussion.
it's part of the ongoing discussion, and certainly we wouldn't bring anything to the town without having a lot more clarification. Again, being that we're in a hearing, we just wanted to kind of put all the cards out there so you know we're trying to responsibly look at all options, but if there's an uproar that we don't want to be landlords, we just tear it down. I mean, it's not...
No, I appreciate it. It's the clarification of that, because thank you.
Yep, thank you.
In this side, please. Yes, sir.
Patrick Murphy at Northwest Corner Road. I read in the paper recently that Groton has a couple of major projects, and they approached the state to get a dollar amount of money before the vote. So they would know, they could present to the voters how much their share would be. My second question is, it's kind of like a coin toss, and the person that loses keeps trying. How many more times are we going to have a referendum? The majority have said in the referendum that they don't want to spend the money. How many more times are we going to have referendums? I know what people want. It's not what the town administration seems to want. And supposedly it's a democracy. Thank you.
So I think to answer the first question, that's part of the information that was presented today in terms of the percentage of reimbursement, so that we have a feel for what the state will provide in support of the project, and that should be in the handouts of roughly $16 million, plus or minus, based upon this particular proposal at this current stage. The second question, I'm not sure that I can really answer you in terms of how many referendums we'll have in the future. It's certainly a question I think you want to discuss with the Board of Education, who has purview over the providing of education in the facilities. As Mike, I think, presented initially, the feedback was the last presentation, the last attempt was fully understood to be too expensive, yet we still have needs in the town to address. And the purpose of the ad hoc committee this year is to try to come up with a reasonable approach to meet all those needs and still look at the future. So if that's not going to be acceptable to the town, then we'll have to again hear what that answer is. The Board of Education will have to take it from there. I'm sure that's not quite the answer you're looking for, but I think that's probably where we are today. On the left side here, further in this. Yes, ma'am, with that.
I also want to just acknowledge that obviously a lot of work has gone into this by the committee, and really appreciate that. And I'm curious, I need some clarity around what Mike said, that if the state doesn't give the funds that we're looking at, reimbursement of almost $17 million, that the project would move ahead anyway. Was that not, did I hear that wrong? In other words, if it's submitted by June to the state, would we then pause to hear back from them, or would we go ahead with the project if it was voted upon?
So we would not be able to go forward with the project until we receive state approval of it, because they have to approve the plans, and we wouldn't even be able to go into the design phase with an architect until they had a concurrence on that. Rusty, is that your understanding of the usual interaction? Yes.
Okay, so what you're saying then is if these monies did not come from the state, that the project would not happen, period. Is that correct?
If the state doesn't approve the project, we would not go forward with the project.
Okay, and so what are other options? That's what I'm curious about, because there's, I think, a bigger picture as well, and I'm curious about options, you know. because nothing is set in ink here at this time.
So if I could comment on the first part, and that's, let me just put a little history. There's been a couple of questions regarding state reimbursement. There is nearly no history of the state not reimbursing on a school project like this. So, and Rusty's been, and you can speak to that if you would like to. I'd be happy to hear that you want to talk a little bit about that, and then I could maybe hit on the second part of it. Diana Urban's here. We're happy to have her. It's a bonus.
Hi everyone, Diana Urban. I live on Backup Road, and my son graduated from Wheeler, and I actually coached basketball right on these floors here for quite a while. So in response to your question, you're absolutely right. First of all, the committee's done an amazing job of trying to maximize the reimbursement from the state. They've done all the homework that they need to do to get to this point in time. That being said, if we do get this in, the reimbursement rate, I cannot remember a time, nor have I heard of a time where we've reneged on that. That being said, there are going to be other areas with the budget that you have seen that the governor has given to the legislature where there are things that are in play in other areas of municipal aid. So there is going to be some impacts, I suspect, in other areas. The reimbursement rate, I do not see that changing. What I would recommend is that as soon as we can get to referendum here, because the idea that the community is behind this is critical as we go forward. So the sooner you get to referendum, the better. Because things do change. And looking at the fiscal climate that we're dealing with now, and it's not just Connecticut that's dealing with this fiscal climate, it is across our country, that states are dealing with what I would refer to as a new reality, which is going to be the reality. And we have to get our fiscal houses in order. I am chair of the Children's Committee. I work very closely with the chair of the Education Committee. We on the Children's Committee have a children's report card where you can take a look at how the programs are working. On the committees we have cognizance of, the agencies we have cognizance of. That's going to be the new world, where you have to have transparency and accountability. Going back to what I was saying, the sooner the better, Mike, on getting this referendum done.
Thanks, Anna. And the second part of your question, as far as should it not pass, our committee has put this forth as the option that we feel is optimal for our town. I think we kind of laid the groundwork, and I don't necessarily, I'm passionate about it, so I apologize if you feel it as a sales pitch, but certainly we've put a lot of work into it, so I have some passion behind it. And I think, as far as the committee is concerned, I think we laid out what we see the plan B, and that would be we have to fix these options so they have, but ultimately what will happen is, as Mark already alluded to, the Board of Education would have to then direct us. But I think as a community, this seems to make the most sense financially and educationally for our town.
I appreciate that. And in an almost perfect situation, and with all the hard work, and the state not turning down, past proposals, that's great. The state of Connecticut is definitely struggling financially, and things are drastically changing. And so I think it's a possibility. And I appreciate the intention and the drive for this project, absolutely. And I do have a concern with there not being more options and possibility, and just being open to those conversations as well, if this didn't come through. It would make me more comfortable as a taxpayer and feel better for this town, because community is important. And to have everybody all voices be heard on this. I appreciate your passion. It's fantastic. And there's a lot of passion here in this town and a lot of concern. So, yeah, what else is possible if not to put all our eggs in one basket? You know, you can drive this and be prepared for other possibilities. I would be curious about that.
Okay, thank you. Over on the side.
My name is Sandy Bernard, and I've been a citizen of this town for the past 40 years, and I've seen a lot of changes. I just have two questions. I want to compliment the group. Excellent presentation, very well covered. The first question that I have is I'd like to see a breakout between the cost, even if it's an estimate, between the elementary school upgrades that are mandatory, they have to be done because we've already made the decision to keep the building, and the high school, and what that's going to cost. And the second thing is I've read with interest in the New London Day the Mashantucket offer of their facilities at the museum. And I'd like to know what the town has done or what they intend to do to review that possibility.
Mike, you want to address the Mashantucket?
Sure. Let me hit the first question, then Bob, you can hit the second one. We did look at, in an earlier presentation, and this goes to looking at different options, we did break down the elementary versus high school costs, and it costed more. And part of the problem with looking at that in that manner is that should we not do something with the middle high school, the cost of this school project potentially changes dramatically, because it's not as simple as, okay, we're not going to do anything over there because we have to do something. And if we have to do something, we don't keep our kids there, well, there's still something to do with the middle school kids. So that means that could really change what we do over here. So it's really difficult to estimate. We did do an estimate on it, and we found it to be not cost effective. Again, why we ended up where we are here. As far as the Mashantucket offer, I would defer to our Board of Ed Chairman Bob Carlson on that question.
Thank you. It was very interesting to hear the offer. We separated into two different parts. One part being philosophically sending children over to the Mashantucket. And the second part is the physical plan, what they have to offer, and could we indeed use that part. On the first part, we talked about the fact it's on sovereign land. We wouldn't have any control of security. We wouldn't have, the Board of Education would have no control of the curriculum. The fact that it's on sovereign land, the Board of Ed and Ed would have no control of the curriculum. We would, as far as I know, the gymatorium or the gym space is not attached to the school. It's quite farther away than this is, our gymatorium to our school. So, first glance was, it didn't seem like it would work, but rather than just close our mind to it, we have set up a tour. The entire Board of Ed is going to be touring that facility sometime in the next 2 weeks. They have 17 classrooms from what we hear, and they have some shared spaces. We have to find out how those shared spaces would work. If they have an auditorium, if we have something planned for that auditorium, and they also have something planned, who would have the chance to use it? If we have things going on in the athletic department, and they had something planned for the athletic department, who would get first shot at it? So these things would have to be worked out, but we do want to tour the facility, see what they have to offer. As I said, the fact that the Board of Ed, they'll only have jurisdiction of our students that would be there, that's being on sovereign property, and the Board of Ed allegedly wouldn't, then it's kind of floating out there, and who would determine security, who would determine curriculum for those students. So it was a very interesting offer, and we haven't closed our mind to it, but we do want to go to the facility and see what they have to offer, and come back and report back to the town once we've seen what they have to show us. Thank you.
A follow-up question?
You
Sure.
didn't answer my first question.
In terms of the breakout?
I asked the dollar amount, even if it's an estimate, for just the elementary school.
I can get you that information. I do not have that information with me. Yeah, I can give it to you. Again, I just want to preface that though. The problem with it is it's a dollar amount, but it's really, we did it because we felt like we had to do it to answer a question like that, but there's a real problem if we don't do anything at the middle high school. So it's not as simple as just putting money into this school and fixing the issues here, because if we don't do something over there, we have to look at what are we doing over there, and does that mean that we have to put more grades over here, in essence it costs more. So, but we will, let's touch base after, and we'll certainly make that available to you. It actually is out there. Our presentations are all available on the North Stonington website, and in one of those presentations that dollar's there, and I apologize that I don't have that figure with me. Russ, you don't know it, do you? Do you know that number?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm Jason Mancini. I'm director of the Pequot Museum, so I have extended this offer on behalf of the tribe to the community to come and visit. So I'm looking forward to this visit. I'd also open up the offer to community members to come and visit the space at the museum. Just to, never been there and would like to see it. We have about 60,000 square feet of underused space. 35,000 of that to be specifically used for a school. Jurisdictionally, you determine your curriculum. It's not up to us, sovereign land or not. That's your space to use as you see fit. We can enhance it. We can offer all sorts of amenities, relationships we have with various institutional partners, and so on. I would like to be considered as part of the Plan B. There are options. The facility is state-of-the-art. It could be a cost-effective solution. We have a lot of multi-purpose uses. We've all talked about creative uses, and obviously dollars and cents mean a lot to this community. So I think there would be a real benefit to talk about a collaborative path forward. I'll just make one other comment, citing the Yale study in terms of the benefits to a community. I just don't see any validity in that for an institution like Yale who's done almost nothing in Haven to improve the value of that community. So I'd be really careful in terms of how you assess quality and investment in the community here. So I'm happy to answer questions afterwards if anybody does have them.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's the cost to the town to use?
It would depend on what you need. It would be a fair market value based on what the community wants and the types of services that's needed. But it would be fair.
The Board of Education has to discuss with them and flesh that out a little more before we're in a position to talk about what the impact would be as well. Vilma, please.
I think as a taxpayer, I'd be more comfortable voting on a referendum that wasn't as open-ended as the firehouse one was, where this is the approximate cost of the project, and here's certain baseline things that we will achieve. In other words, we're going to build a 2-car garage, not a 1-car garage, or whatever. You know, I know you can't be super specific, but some kind of commitment on both sides would make me a lot more comfortable. I'd also, not necessarily something to answer today, but I'd like to think of if we're going to spend money on this new public education facility, on including adults as part of that public, and see more of how we might incorporate programs and so forth with the community at large, because then it makes the bucks pay for themselves.
Just on the, well, thank you for those comments, and we absolutely, that's why we're taking this hearing very seriously. We're asking for your feedback, and when we go to actual town meeting to go to referendum, we'll have something in stone. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm sure little things can change, but certainly our mission is to hear your feedback now, take it back to our committee, discuss it, and then fine-tune our project so that when we move it forward to the Board of Education, which we hope to do soon, they have a final project that we can all be proud of and know that it's going to end up as we presented it.
So again, reason for the public hearings, give feedback. This is where we are in the process. Not everything's nailed down yet. Ann, please.
Hi, I'm Ann Donald from Northwest Corner Road. And I think you've done a great job in presenting this. And I have several concerns. First of all, we've nickel and dimed the town budget for so long. Ultimately, you have to pay the piper, you have to move forward on things. And I think this is one of the times, unfortunately, things have piled up together, and that's unfortunate, but the payments will be, spread out through time, so it won't be a monster hump, I believe, at this time. I'm concerned about, I also have a story about one girl from Stonington who was in Stonington High School and miserable. And she came out here to North Stonington and evidently as happy as a clam. And I heard this from a store owner in Mystic who was a friend of her father. So I think you need to take that one to the bank too, to say that we have something here that is not in Stonington, and that our North Stonington students would maybe feel like fish out of water or a little frog in a big pond, and that's daunting for a kid. The other thing is I hate to tear down buildings that still have use, and I would think that maybe for affordable housing or some town offices, I think we still rent space over in Holly Green for the Recreation Commission. Couldn't we bring them into one of those buildings and some other office things, even if it's just storage or something like that? Because the town hall is tight, and we could still keep that part functioning, but some of these peripheral things could go in one of these buildings, whether the one you're thinking of renting out or the one you're tearing down. I just hate to tear down a building that could still have a use when some of us maybe remember when it was built, and it's like the Boom Bridge. I remember when that one was built, and then have that declared unsafe now just calls me no end. So, then I know there's a big push for affordable housing, and maybe this could be apartment-type units that would open out on the outside. You aren't going to have any children over on that side of the road too much, and so there shouldn't be, it should be able to be separated, that the adults are one side and the whatever else is going to be somewhere else. So I just put that forth as a thought too, that there could be a little use there.
Thank you. There's a subcommittee that's looking at alternate uses, and they're collecting those ideas. You got any? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Like everybody else said, I commend the committee for doing a lot of terrific work to come down to this. So fundamentally, it comes down, I think, to the old adage, follow the money. The mill rate, the taxes, etc. And I think that's the predominant reason that this was kicked back at the last two referenda. And as Van indicated, this is not that much lower. So I'd be concerned that if this went to a referendum, that you have a better than even chance that it might get kicked back again. And then where would you be? So what I'm asking, I guess, is at my house, if I need to do something, renovated new, or something, a room or a porch or something, and I don't have the cash for it, I decide what I can do without. Nobody has a lot of spare cash around, so neither does the town. So if you went to the town and said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to keep kids in North Stonington, we're going to make a great facility, and we're going to cut till it hurts in the budget and say, we're going to have almost zero impact mill rate because we're going to cut these services, it's going to hurt, but we're saying this is important enough to make it so that we need to do this. I'll bet you have a really good chance of getting it through. Now, it really just comes down to mill rate, taxes, etc. So we have some members of the Finance Committee here, if they wanted to, maybe they don't, comment on the sort of things that we could think about cutting back on, or whether it's even possible to cut back. But I think that's the answer. We divide the town up because people say, oh, it's all about the children's education, and other people say, oh, it's all about the money, and people then, working against each other in a town that otherwise should be working together. Nobody wants to have less education for kids. Nobody wants to have unsafe conditions for kids. But at the same time, we have a hard time working out how you can afford this. So, could we hear a little bit maybe from the Selectmen and the Finance Committee about whether we can find other ways to make sure we can afford this, except to say increase the mill rate and take it out of the people's pockets?
So most definitely that's a question that we're faced with going forward, and the years in the past have built us up to this point. I would say the Board of Finance is probably not ready to address that just yet, but it's all rolled into the overall budget discussion. From the selectmen's perspective, we're starting the budget process. We're looking at the inputs from the operating government, considering what the capital expenditures ought to be and what the debt load's going to be. And that'll be part of the input that we give the Board of Finance. And this is why we've had the tri-board structure now for a year, so that all the boards are informed as we work through this process, as we start to look at the various options, how we break it apart, what the cost to the town might be, so that all the boards can consider that going forward. I think you're right. I think those are the kinds of questions that we're going to be asking ourselves. And I don't know that we're quite ready to answer those just yet, or that it's proper in this forum to do that, but I'll convey to you that that's part of the process in the next couple of months to go through the budget.
I agree with your perception of this situation, and I know at your house, like at my house, I would probably be saying, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. We've been waiting 20 years, we haven't done X, Y, and Z, so that's another part. It's a really big challenge for our committee that not that the maintenance hasn't been done on the buildings, it has, but we're way behind. And so, unfortunately, unlike at our own houses where we kind of try to do things a little bit at a time that we need to do, we haven't been successful in town. So that's part of the challenge, but I concur with all Mark's comments and look forward in the coming weeks to working with the other boards to figure that out.
Brian, you've been very patient. Thank you.
Well, I think the committee did a great job on their presentation and their homework, and I commend them on that. I don't blame anybody who has children in our schools that they want to keep them going. I actually graduated from the school too. I lived in the town since 1959, and I have some concerns. One of my concerns is I haven't heard any, and it goes back to the mill rate. We got an EM emergency building we're going to be voting on. I don't know what it's going to do to the mill rate or anything. When you say you can't come up with some kind of idea, why can't you come up with, let's just start off even just with the mill rate of what the EMS building would do to the mill rate. What would this project do to a mill rate without anything else in our budget? You know what I mean? In other words, start out at zero. How much will those two projects increase our mill rate? I would think to be able to come up with something like that. As far as New Haven, I believe there was a businessman that went to New Haven and bought some property and fixed it up. He provides a lot of taxes for New Haven. I don't see businesses banging on our door to come to North Stonington. It's been said for years, oh, we're going to bring business in, we're going to bring business. It doesn't happen. Therefore, it comes back on this taxpayer, on my pocketbook. The people that aren't senior citizens probably don't know the federal government decided that senior citizens are going to have no cost of living raise, no nothing. They gave a big goose egg for a raise this year. But they didn't do anything with the medical except raise it up. So that took more money out of their pocket. Now, I love all of North Stonington. I love the kids, I love the people, I love the old timers. And I want to see us all stay here and work as a community. But I want to all be sensitive to each other's needs too. Now, I've read different articles in the paper that people have spoken well of our school, and I'll speak well of our school. I got educated here. I'm very concerned though, because I see a lot of houses up for sale. Neighbors have been here for years to sell them because they just can't afford it anymore. We keep driving this price up to our taxes. We're going to tax ourselves right out of this town. And I don't want to see that happen. We're going to be forcing farmers to sell their lands North Stonington won't be North Stonington anymore, it'll turn into Groton. As far as anything boosting up the price of my house, I hope the hell it never happens, because I'll tell you, I don't want to pay no more taxes. Price of the house goes up, taxes go up. I don't know what the total answer is, but I'd like to see some more options. I'd also like to say, like I said, I don't know how anybody can really vote on this unless they know exactly what it's going to do to your pocketbook. People have kids in school, most of them have jobs. You're probably going to end up with a raise at the end of the year or whenever you get them, a bonus or whatever. So I can understand why you want, it's not going to affect you that much. I mean, it's still going to affect you, but you're going to be able to replace some of that money that you're paying out. So I guess my final remark, I'd just like to say that I'm hoping that we can see more of the black and white as far as the financial goes, because that's what's going to make or break this project, I believe. We can't just go ahead and say, okay, we're going to spend all this money and then worry about paying it later. The state is in terrible shape right now. They've had businesses leave, people are leaving, they're bringing in people and giving them more money just to live here. The federal government, I don't even know if we have them anymore. They just don't, you can't get a hold of them. And maybe that's another avenue committee could chase down, you know. See if there's any federal funds out there to help us pay for something like this, because I'll tell you, it's really going to be a burden on a lot of people in this town. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mike. More questions? Lady behind me.
In terms of project managing this, who is responsible for that? Has that been set up?
So the structure going forward, if we pass a referendum and get an approved project from the state, under the town ordinance, there's a municipal building structure that would be invoked. So the selectmen would appoint a committee that would oversee the management of the project and work with the Board of Ed and the ad hoc committee as we transition.
And is there any type of incentive if the program, if the building is under budget, under time, that they get, I don't know if that'd be Rusty's group, or whoever's doing the building, that they would get a dividend, like it goes over budget, over time?
So that would certainly be down the road a little bit more after the formation of a municipal building committee to oversee the project. They would start developing the request for proposals that would go out, and we would negotiate with the architect, engineer.
Has that been done in the past with the town on building projects? My concern with the
In
town.
terms of incentives?
Yeah, and just their legacy of building projects going over budget, failing.
I don't think I have the history. Nick, can you answer that offhand? Have there been incentives on past municipal building projects that would have rewarded or penalized contractors depending on their budget performance?
I don't have the information on top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'm inclined to say no, that it's been more fixed cost, and we've worked out project scope changes as they go along. So that's been my knowledge of the past construction projects, but that would be an aspect that could certainly be considered going forward.
And a question, I don't know if this is for Diane, with the New London magnet school systems, I know that the state is saying that they are not capable of funding the New London magnet school burden that they had committed to. Would that impact our town request or how? My concern is the state not having money. If they don't have money to pay for the New London school magnet systems that they've already committed to, how are they going to commit to us and guarantee that?
You're talking about a different argument that's going on in the state, and that's the argument between magnet schools and charter schools, and that's a whole different section of what the monies that we're talking about with school construction. So it's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. For,
For
yes,
school construction.
yes, yes.
So if the state is running out of money, it doesn't have the money, how can you guarantee that they can commit to this town or any other town moving forward?
We have this magic thing called bonding. I'm not being facetious.
Yes.
And what it is that we prioritize. So when it comes down to exactly what are we going to fund and what aren't we going to fund, we're going to cut in other places before we cut school construction. And when we're really up against the wall, then you'll see the bonding, even though we have a self-imposed bonding cap, which they call the soft cap, we have exceeded that cap by redefining things and being able to increase our bonding level. We take a look at what our rating is on our bond, and until that rating looks like it's going to drop, we will substitute bonding for actual funding so that we can go forward. But let me repeat, education is an area that comes first. You will not see us go to cutting in the education areas before we'll cut in other areas. And that is the sad thing that we're looking at this session. You're going to see cuts in a lot of social service areas, unfortunately. And that's the difference in the charter magnet school question. And that's the whole question about what's the best way to educate our children, and are we diverting funds to areas that are making our public schools worse off? And shouldn't our public schools be the first place that we help? And when we're substituting magnet school and charter school funds, that's the argument that's going on. So the way that the state has pursued that in the committee that I work with is that it's the public school that's number one. And these charter schools and magnet schools have been taking up significant amounts of funding, and this is where the dichotomy happens.
Into that, please, Ms. Pam.
Sue I live on Route 184. Just a little bit of background from me. I've been in town about 40 years. My husband has been here longer. He actually graduated from Miller. I grew up in northwestern Connecticut, and up there I went to two different towns because of us moving. Two different school systems because of us moving. Both were regional school systems. So I first came into town here, and gee, it's a small school, but there's a lot going on here. There's been a lot going on here. And over the years, and having our kids go through the system, I realized just what a gem we had here in town. As I've sat here tonight, this afternoon, listening to all the different questions, all I've gotten is more confused, and here's why. When I first came to the session, I think it was either December or January, I walked in with, what's wrong with them? Why are they going to build a new school system? What we've had here is great. Why don't they just fix what we got? In my house, that's what I would do. Why don't we do it? And then when I walked out of there, it was, okay, I can see what they're talking about. So I came in here today, expecting to get some more answers as to why you wanted to build a new school. And I still agree for the most part with that. I think that keeping our kids here, I think the mandate that we had at the referendum before, not referendum, but the town question about keeping a school right here locally instead of spreading them out all over, was the answer to that part of the question. But what I'm confused about now is we're talking about we have to get to this referendum, we have to say yes if we want to get it before the state and get this 47% reimbursement rate. You have provided some costs, and I kind of figured that, okay, we're just trying to work out with, we've got these beautiful little presentations of what it's going to look like, and then I heard the words about, oh, well then it would have to go, we'd have to put bids out, we'd have to get the architects involved. Well, if we haven't done that already based on what we're seeing here, how good are those costs? You're saying they're up to date now, but they're really not, you're gonna have to go talk to other people, and then we're going to find out what they really want to charge us before we can even get this definite answer? I mean, how does this all work? My question is timing. What happens when? How long is this going to take? When will we know what the numbers will be? And then after that, only after that, can you really say how it'll affect our taxes, right?
So a lot in that question.
Yeah, there is. It started out simple, but then you kept asking questions.
I'll see if I can piece it together and then rely on your feedback if I'm addressing your concerns. School construction process is a long process with the state in order to get reimbursement. Your question about having to work with additional professionals like an architect and contractors is the routine process. So we've done the conceptual studies. We've been working with the architect now for a while to come up with the estimates. The attempt is to consider escalation, consider conservative costs, consider conservative remediation costs for the project so that we can at least have an overall project number to approach the state with. After the state approves that approach and they review it for reasonableness in terms of the cost also, to make sure that we've really included all the things that they need in terms of school system and school requirements, we would go through the design and engineering process. And that's when you start generating all your build documents and detailed plans to actually turn the conceptual study into the actual school. And then we would have to also likewise put out for bid for construction after that. That's a pretty typical process. To do all that on the front end usually costs a substantial amount of money, which historically the town has never approved for us to go forward with. I agree that would give you a harder number, but again, we've never had any success in making that approach. Consequently, this is what we're approaching the town with now. The second part is the time frame. In order for the state to decide what they're going to find in future years, they set a timetable, and the cutoff date is the end of June of each year. All school projects submitted to them by the end of June of the year are evaluated during the course of the next year, and they have 12 months to notify the town that they can proceed and they agree with the plans going forward. They may do it sooner. They may give us a heads up, which would allow us to start working on engineering costs, and to your point, allow us to get more concrete numbers in place. There's a lot of communication that goes back and forth and sharing that with the state as the project goes forward. And then when they finally approve it, then we're able to continue going forward. Does that help address?
Sort of. So is this the plan that we want to do then, and it's just a matter of, once the state says yes or no or whatever, that it meets what they want, that the only change we might have to make is be if the state says something else needs to be done, and that then after that, all we're doing is getting bids from contractors to actually build that, or do they start off from, you know?
So I would say this is not 100% the plan. This is well down the road in making a proposal, which is why we're coming to public comment to get feedback. The ad hoc committee will now incorporate comments. They've been talking to various groups in the town over the last couple of months, soliciting input from the various stakeholders, and they're going to continue to work that plan. They need to go to the Board of Education ultimately and present their recommendation. The Board of Education has to decide that that's the plan they're going to go forward or not. Once they decide that that's the plan that's going to go forward, then we will work back through the process, come back to the town with another public hearing, have more specific and final details of what we're proposing as a town, and we would have revised cost estimates at that point. We wouldn't have final cost until after the state had approved that and we'd gone through the bid process.
Okay. So there's still a lot of questions on that, but basically whether we make it before June or whether we make it a little later, the state will reimburse is just a question of how much. And then after that, it's timing. This is our goal, this plan that we have here. My husband's retiring this year, our income's not going to be going up and up. In fact, as federal employees, so it hasn't gone up and up anyways for a long time. But there comes a point in time when you do have to just cut to the chase, and we do need to support the kids in our town. So overall, I want everybody to be as cost effective as they can be doing this, but we do need to do something, and sometimes you just get to the point where you just can't wait for the building to fall down. So I think we should think about it.
Thank you.
I just had a follow-up question on the state reimbursement. Can they approve the funding off conceptual design? I mean, do you have to go right into detailed drawings, and how much detail do they need before, or what do we have to commit before they'll approve that funding?
So basically, the kind of information that we're presenting in the public hearing will be presented to the state along with, 2 or 3 forms that they might request. Facetious there, but we would offer that to the state. They may have some questions in the course of reviewing the application, but we would not go to detailed design until after they had approved the approach, and then they would allow us to proceed, and then there'd be some communication back and forth with the state as we go through that process.
Okay. I do think for the public it might be helpful to have a timeline of this whole process that summarizes the design process, where we're at now. Just string it out over the next 2 years. What's it going to be to actually get, a building started? And, people that want a school, I think it impacts just knowing, what's it going to take to get there.
Sure.
With the design process, where we're at right now.
Okay. The committee has some of that. They haven't laid it out on a timeline graphically. Mike spoke to the general timeframe of the construction, but that's good feedback. We can make that available through future publication.
Another question, I guess, how much of the past work is applicable to this plan? I know the new high school, I don't think that was really developed in the last schematics. I think there was more, conceptual study work done on the buildings and what was going to be involved with that. So are there any schematics going into the look at this building other than sort of plan view studies?
I'm not sure I understand the question. For the current high school?
For the last referendum that was voted on, based on those plans where there were renovations across the street, I think there was significant time and materials from Quisenberry on that. So how much of that, I guess, applies to this new plan?
I see.
There's like,
Mike, you want to address that?
have there been some nice for the new high school? What level of studies are you at, I guess?
Well, the good news is the ad hoc committee last time did a ton of work, so it made our job a lot easier. So, I mean, we didn't revisit a lot of what they did as far as the schematics and whatnot. What we did do was try to, like I said, where we started was where can we save money and come up with something that still meets the needs for the kids. And so there were changes at this building. Certainly, we took down less walls. There was more change in this building in the last plan than there is in this plan. And as far as over there, it's it's a brand new design. So we definitely kind of started over on that one. But we I know that there's been discussion of seeing more options, and so our job as a committee was to filter through that information, and we did look at quite a few other options, but what we're presenting to you is what we feel is the footprint that we're very comfortable with as a committee. This is what we feel like is the way we should go, but again, hearing the feedback from everybody that's here and kind of taking that to the committee. But to answer your question, we did utilize a lot of the homework that they had already done.
Yeah. All right, and then on this, for the renovations on the elementary school, can you talk a little bit about just how do you see that being phased over the construction period and dealing with the kids in school? And I guess my point to that would be, is there any value in doing that project, or maybe take advantage of some of that National Tucket space if you were to displace the kids for a little while to get this done maybe sooner and more cost effective?
Yeah, we could definitely talk about the phasing of it a little bit. I think we would immediately start, if all goes according to plan, we'd start in 2017 in the summer over here. If we needed to do any sort of, that's that's potentially what we're talking about. There's also talk of we could potentially start over there, and then maybe we could use the middle high school for some swing space as well. So we definitely don't have that level of detail done. What we do know is the phasing is going to be a lot better with this plan than any of the past plans, because of the fact that we're building a brand new middle high school, and basically our kids that are there can literally just start school at the new facility. There's no interruption to education, and we would try everything we could to make that possible over here as well. Pam, who's on our committee, I think had the lead, but she's very sensitive to how that affects the kids, and certainly we've taken that into account. We would continue to really take that into account going forward.
Okay. Yes, and then just on the high school, when would you think we'd see some, you know, within this presentation, do you see having schematics of what this might look like? Before the referendum?
We would have some renderings. We wouldn't have schematics. No, we wouldn't have any schematics. I don't think that's anything we would do in advance. It would be renderings. So, and again, renderings are.
I mean, for what this is going to look like.
Oh, we actually, yeah,
perspective.
We would definitely have some of those for the town meeting. So you'd have an idea of what the vision is. And again, they're renderings. So I mean, that's what we think they'll look like, but it's, you know, there could be small changes, but we have some pretty good renderings that we're working on right now that we would like to, after your feedback, incorporate that and then have those available at the town meeting. A couple, you know, whatever that is.
More questions? Pat?
Hi, Pat Wilson, Ridge Road. My father went to school here. My siblings and myself went to school here. My children and my grandchildren as well. And collectively, we probably paid enough taxes to put an addition on. But I am all for this project, and I don't think we can wait any longer. With interest rates being notoriously low, I think we're probably going to get a deal. When I bought my first house in town, it was like 9.5%. And I'm not quite sure what we'll pay for interest rates to build this project, but I've seen where we've already trimmed down from where it was a couple years ago. And I'm disappointed that we're not going to put on a new gymnasium. Of course, I don't want any more taxes, but I guess you're going to make this to make it look more like a gymnasium. And I really think the town needed another gymnasium. When we went to school, we had the gymnasium across the school, but they changed into the media center. And that gymnasium was far better than our gymnatorium. So I don't know if we can convert that back, but it was really compared to what we have. Anyway, I'm for this project, and I don't think we can afford not to have it. With interest rates being as low as they are, and perhaps you can let us know what interest rate we would get if we go forward at this point.
I don't think we can speak to the interest rate today, but that would be some information that we would start talking about in the next public hearing when we go to additional appropriation. Yes, sir.
My name's Al Bernard. I think that we should take a look at a master plan. The fire department needs more money, more space. I think if we group things together and have somebody look at the whole picture instead of a piece of the picture in each location, we could do better. And I'm just going to throw this out. If they renovated the existing firehouse, put the education offices in there, took the fire department down here, put it in the gymnatorium, put some doors on it, take the master buckets up on their offer, it would save us a heck of a lot of money.
Appreciate the comments. I think, and this is my personal opinion, I would agree that we need more of a higher level master plan, strategic look at the town. And I think this is a good opportunity this year to do just that with the emergency services building. A couple of things, my immediate reaction, your comment about trying to move the firehouse now to using the facilities like in the gymnatorium. We're limited in our ability to use that property because of the Wheeler deed for secondary school applications. So very early in the process, we kicked around some different options to consider alternatives within the town. And right now, these are the options that have been falling out. But But I certainly appreciate the input and trying to get a higher level look at everything. Another comment? Yes, sir, Barrow.
My name is Rick Stefanski. My wife and I no longer have kids at school anymore. One of the questions or concerns that we have, we saw a couple of plans from the high school. We saw the first floor and we saw the second floor and we saw some of the classrooms. First of all, we stay wholeheartedly proponent of the plan, and thank you to the committee for your efforts on this. Many times I hear opponents to any new schools or reverberations. Many times the opponents claim small school. The question I want to ask, in some of the new classrooms, we often lose students between 8th grade and the high school to other schools of choice. Now, I'm not going to make any additional comments on that. But do the new plans for the high school, would they eliminate individual choices to go, or would it no longer be a viable option to lose students to a Ledyard or an NSA for a school of choice? Would we have the facilities that would allow those students to remain at Wheeler? Your BOAG programs or whatever?
Could you take a stab at addressing that?
Rick, I was going to answer this question. So I think that with the plans that we looked at with the changing of classrooms and the way that education is changing with virtual classrooms, I know my son's a junior and he's taking some classes online. I think there's a lot more opportunity to add classes, add options for the students' curriculum down the road. As far as the BOAG, we're doing some great things now with the greenhouse and the farm to table and the farm clubs that we're doing now. I know the principal of the high school is looking into doing more of that with Mr. Shadrew, where he's a sophomore science teacher. So we're trying to embrace more of the culture of the town, talking to the local farmers and see how we can do some work with them, maybe some cross-curriculum with farming and the town, because we know that's where North Stonington began. And we do lose some students to other schools. Sometimes we're not going to have a football team here anytime soon, I don't believe, unless we get a giant influx of population. So I don't see that happening, although we have not been sending as many people to BOAG to play football as we have in the past, because that's changing now with concussion reports and so on. Some students, the school isn't for everyone. Some students want to go to a larger school like an NFA, and I think that might be better for them, for their own personal choice. But we're also looking at towns like Preston and Longtown, because we think that those students that are going to Griswold or NFA might find our school as a better choice for them. So I've been working with Preston, I've been working with Longtown to see if we might be able to offer them a choice to an NFA or a Griswold. So maybe we're going to increase our population in our school by bringing students here. There's a wonderful program going on now. They're going to be looking at a new CCRI building in Westlake, and that building is going to be dedicated to a workforce down the road for ED. There's been a grant by the Royce family of $1.3 million. The town of Westlake's put in quite a bit of money, and there's a groundbreaking ceremony that's going to take place in about a month. Governor Gina Raimondo was there, and I was there at a presentation 2 weeks ago. That is going to be tied into Charahoe, Westerly, Stonington, and North Stonington, as far as the high schools. And we'll have some classes that will be geared towards that. When those students graduate, we already have classroom work that will be transferable to the new CCRI building in Westerly. Go to school there and then be guaranteed a job at EB once that's gone. So what does that mean as far as our curriculum? It may entice some students to come to a Stonington or a Wheeler High School to get their foot into that kind of a program that no other high school around here is going to have. We're looking at ways to increase our enrollment. We always will lose some students, and And I think that's a personal decision, but we're gonna offer everything we can possibly offer to keep our students here. But there's always gonna be some students that might want to leave for one reason or another. But we never want them to leave because we don't offer them a great education, which is what we offer now.
So just to be specific, we did see a first and a second floor plan for the new high school. So what you just described, the new building will have additional capabilities that may assist in retaining students at will.
I would hope so.
It's built into the plan now.
It's built into the plan now, and also there's room on the end of the building for future growth. It's on the back side of the building where down the road, if we had a large influx of population due to economic development, for whatever reason it is that we brought more people to town, we could add on. But as Mike said, the school's going to be built now that we could easily take a 10 to 15% increase in student population without hurting ourselves. But there will be more opportunities just because of the infrastructure will be so much more updated. The science labs and the audio visual technology that we don't have now, so we can't help but be farther along than, is that what you want?
Yes, and then just one additional question, and I apologize if this is in a FAQs, because I don't have my glasses, I can't read it. But let's assume we're in a position where everything is approved, and, you know, the funding's in place. Once you break ground on the building, how long will it take until everything's completed?
The committee thinks 18 months.
That seems very quick.
And I think to that point is the way it's structured such that we can phase the construction, and like Mike was saying, we're able to swing students if we have to, and be able to blow through the project much quicker than past proposals have shown.
Outstanding. Good luck with it. Thank you.
Dan, in the back.
Okay, hi. Just because I hear it said fairly often, did this town,
Did we, the people, ever vote to not send our kids out of town? Was there ever a formal vote?
To my knowledge, the people did not have a direct referendum. There was a public hearing that solicited input about that, and the Board of Education made a vote to determine that students would not be sent out of town, as it's a public policy decision within their purview. Bob, did you want to elaborate on that some more?
I think it was in 2011, there was a study done to look at schools of choice. I think we looked at Stonington, Montville, NFA, Ledyard. And we looked at costs. I wasn't on the board at that. I did attend meetings at the time, so somewhat aware of it. But we did do studies on what it would cost for busing, what it would cost for the tuition at these other schools, what kind of control we have over tuition. The tuition would be $12,500 per student one year, and next year that school decided to put on a big addition, and they're going to raise it to $15,500. We also looked at the intangibles. Being a small school, if you want to go up to the basketball team, you probably going to make it. If you want to be in the debate team, you probably can. If you want to be in the band, you can. We looked at some of the intangibles of students going to other schools, and if their parents would be willing to pick them up at 8 o'clock at night because practice was over, or the debate was over, or the ski club was back, and would they want to drive to Montville, Stonington, NFA, and so on. So, and with our students, the education experience, the whole is scholastic, but it's also social. And with our students lose on some of those social options if they're going to, someone said George Stonington would be the small fish in a large pond. Would that person be willing to try to go up to the basketball team? You know, 60 people were trying out for it, where at Wheeler to try to play basketball. So the entire experience, we thought, was one thing we had to look at, as well as the financial side. So since the financial side was coming back in not so crazily positive way that, we're going to save a ton of money, so let's consider this. It looked like it was coming back fairly flat when we figured the busing in the tuition and the loss of control of tuition. And then when you add the intangible piece in too, and the experience you'd be losing, in high school. I mean, we always have kids that advance. My son went to NFA and he wanted to play tennis. He probably do very well and make the team, and that'd be fine for him. But there'd be those students that might not want to go up with the team or be afraid to go up with the debate or whatever they wanted to do as an extracurricular activity. And we didn't want to suppress that. We don't suppress any of that here. So that went into some of that decision making also. So there was a study done. Board of Ed had a meeting in this room. One by one, people came up to the podium, and both students and taxpayers, and said why they wanted to keep the school open or why they thought we should close it. And if I remember right, that night was probably 80–85% overwhelming that we want to keep Wheeler open. And a lot of the people that made those comments, people lived here for years and years. So the Board of Ed decided after that meeting that we would take a vote, and the Board of Ed decided unanimously to keep the school open. And that's what I remember.
Okay, so the bottom line is the people voted to keep Wheeler open, but there was no vote that our students should stay in town. That was just for that what did you call it? It wasn't a referendum, it was a petition? Was that?
There was a public hearing held to collect town input, and then the Board of Education subsequently made a public policy decision on the future of the school.
And I'm probably the person to answer this. Is our school population growing or shrinking? I happened to see one of the presentations back from the first school proposal, and it said that our school population was supposed to get about 825 and to stay flat all the way out. So where are we now for student population, and do we expect it to grow back to any level, or is it going to be shrinking or stay where we are?
I wish I could answer that question, but I guess my own feeling on it, it's just me, not as the chairman of the Board of Ed, I feel like we're a town that's situated in a wonderful position between major cities near the highway. Economic development has been static in the past, but hopefully with the economic plan that we came up with a couple of years ago as a town, that will develop down the road. I think the magnet schools, the charter schools, have taken some students. We've lost some students to schools because of bigger sports like football teams. But we also gained some students, as we heard the story about the girl from Stonington that came here because it was a much better choice for her. As I mentioned, I've had contact with some parents in Preston that would love to have their students come here rather than go to NFA, only because they're a small town, and we offer that small town education. So yeah, we're flat for now. I can't guarantee it's going to boom in the future, but I don't think it's going to keep regressing. We've gone down about as far as we can go, unless all the houses go for sale and everybody starts moving out of town. But as of right now, I think we're pretty flat where we are, but with hopes of growing in the future. If we can bring some students in through the EV initiative in Westerly, and I can work with Preston and Valentine, some of the other local schools, I can see our population grow. But I can't guarantee it.
What's our school population now?
700 maybe 745, I have to, not exact, but I have to look at it for you. And I think it was probably at a high of the low to mid 800s 20 years ago. And we hope to be back towards 800 miles down the road. That was my goal anyway, as chairman of the Board of Ed. Any other questions?
Just want to do a time check. We're approaching 3:30, and I guess we're going to lose a couple of committee members, so our ability to answer questions may be limited, but are there any last questions or comments? Anyone?
I have one last comment.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Heather McGregor. I've lived in this town for 29 years. I've had no children, so I have not had a burden on the school systems. I'm also retired and on Social Security, so I do not have an income increase. This is going to put a big burden on my family. Everyone else who has children who've gone through the school system is wonderful. The proposal is wonderful, but I can't afford it.
Thank you. Any other comments? So before we convene, then, I just want to point out to your attention on the back of the agendas, there's some information about the CT alert system that you can sign up for in your electronic devices and phones that allows you to be notified of situations that are hazardous and pending weather events. And I would just also note that I think we're under a weather advisory warning for severe cold today, tomorrow, so please be careful as you're going out and take care of your pets. Thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate your input.